Welcome back to Salt It Up, where we dive deep into topics that matter with voices that truly inspire. Today, we have a special guest joining us from Austin, Texas. He's a pastor at Red Rocks Church, an author, and someone who's made waves for his perspective on singleness. Welcome, Ryan, author of Single Today.
Lisa,
Ryan, thanks
thank
for
you
being here.
so much for having me. It's such an honor. I love this space that you are creating, and I personally love Southern California, and so it was an easy yes for me to jump on. I wish I could come do this in person. That's my only
That
regret.
would have been fantastic. Yes. And you lived in Southern California, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I lived in Laguna Beach for a while, and then I was a young adult pastor at a church in Seal Beach, Cypress, Long
Mhm.
Beach, kind of North Orange County area for about 5 years. I did all sorts of stuff there, missions and education, and so I love to surf. I love the ocean, and I miss it. But I will say we've had
I
a
bet.
very we've had a hot summer in Austin, but this morning it is like overcast and it feels like a Southern California morning, and I'm just reveling in
Beautiful.
it
So
right now.
you can pretend that you're here.
Perfect.
Oh, so yeah, we want to get to know a little bit about you. We know
Mhm.
you're pastoring in Austin. You've written this book about singleness, and you live in a world where a lot of pastors are married with families, and
Mhm.
that's just what's expected. But you've chosen a different path. So can you tell us a little bit about what led you to where you're at? Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been a single pastor for the last 10 years now. And to your point, um, especially in my stream of Christianity, that's pretty rare. And so all of my pastor friends got married, most in their early 20s or late 20s. And before we go any further, let me say this. I love that. I'm a huge proponent of marriage. I officiate weddings all the time. I pray constantly that people will meet each other at the church that I'm a pastor at. I love marriage. I have also just felt very independent myself and always felt very comfortable being by myself. And so as of yet, that hasn't been a huge desire of mine. But what was always interesting for me, especially, in the beginning, is I didn't quite understand how to explain that. And I think I was trying to understand it myself, and that led me into a lot of like really frustrating moments and lonely drives home, and yeah, just times where I'm like, what am I doing, and is there something wrong with me? And so the book Single Today is kind of all about that journey, over the last several years of learning to realize, no, there's nothing wrong with me. I am just a very independent human, and that's actually okay and something that we should celebrate.
As you've entered this place of allowing yourself to celebrate it and accept it in yourself, how are you finding that other people are responding to that in the church?
It's been really special. You know what I realized is, and this may help somebody, a lot of it was just me needing to learn how to communicate it effectively. Um, I think people are it, I think that human beings, we know it says in Genesis, it's not good for man to be alone. Like, we're created to be in relationship, and especially that like romantic husband and wife relationship. Like, that's a really beautiful thing that a lot of people in the church just assume is like the default setting. And so I had to learn the hard way that it's actually on me to when the jokes start flying of, oh, Ryan's single, there's got to be something wrong with him, to be the one to initiate the conversation, the courageous conversation where I go, hey, actually I really love being single. And this has actually been a choice for me. And right around that time, that's where the jokes get worse, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm sure it's a choice for you." And I have to double down and go, "No, truly, I'm a really independent human." And I love the way that God made me. And whether that is just for today or for the rest of my life, I actually really enjoy being single. And so what I've noticed, to answer your question, is the response is always really good once I effectively communicate my heart. But until that moment, there's always the jokes, and the thing about jokes is there's always layers to jokes, and so sometimes there's like the cutting, jabs underneath it. That's a real thing. I disciple single people all the time, and a lot of the times they will tell me like, well, I feel good here. Like I'm in Austin, Texas. I feel good in Austin, but I don't really want to go home for the holidays. I'm not really like looking forward to it because I know when I see my extended family and I don't have a date with me, it's just going to be question after question after question of being bombarded by it. And so we do a lot of work. I do a lot of work with them of like, okay, um, what actually bothers you about that question, and what do you think your extended family is, why do you think they're actually asking? And the more that you dig, the more you start to see like, oh, they're asking because they care about you, because they want to know, because like talking about relationships is like a pretty normal topic of conversation around the dinner table. And when you can make the small reframe of, I actually love where I'm at today, it opens up the door for all sorts of interesting conversations.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you're making headway with these belief systems, and you're pushing through, communicating and giving words to what many others might feel,
Yeah,
and challenges in that, and walking them through that, and helping them see it in a different way and address the outside world in that.
I hope so. Yeah, thank you for saying that. I
Yeah,
that's always been the goal, because I know um, how difficult and much of a struggle singleness can really be. Um, I
yeah.
talk about it like it's this like beautiful, awesome thing, and I believe that it is. But that doesn't mean that it's like 100% of the time. I'm just like, singleness is awesome. There's all of the struggles that come with it, Just like, by the way, for all my married friends, you all know being married is awesome, and there's a whole bunch of struggles that come with it. Um, any day and any route that you choose, you're always going to have some advantages and some disadvantages. And so much of what I'm trying to do is single people are constantly reminded of the disadvantages. I want to be the voice reminding them about the advantages of being single.
You mentioned that it has a lot of positives and is almost a gift. Can you unpack that idea of how it's a gift a little bit more?
Yeah, that's so in Christianity, one of the things that happens is people talk about, or in the Bible, it talks about gifts that the Holy Spirit gives us. And at one point, Paul, the Apostle Paul, is a guy that wrote a bunch of letters in the New Testament. Mentions how he was single and how it's actually a gift for him. And so what has happened because of that is there is kind of this anxiety around singleness in the church, because some people think that it's a gift of the Holy Spirit, and the way that they translate that is like they're doomed and destined to never meet anybody ever, And so, like, to them, they're
Well, I
like,
don't know
"Oh
if that'd be
no,
a gift then.
like, can I give this gift back? How do
Oh, we
I,
didn't ask for that one.
how do I get a refund for this gift?" Um, and so I get asked all the time, like, "Hey, do you think you have the gift of singleness?" And one of the ways I've learned to play with that phrase is I say, actually, singleness is a gift. And again, so is marriage, and so is, to the one who is engaged right now and is planning a wedding and is super stressed out. Being engaged is a gift. There are gifts waiting for you today in any season that you are in. The trick is to learn how to look for it. So, like for me, when it comes to singleness, I like to do my best to point out a lot of those gifts to the season. Like I was at my brother's house last night, and he's married and he has 3 kids and an awesome wife, and his house is so much fun for me to visit, and I love being an uncle. I also love going home at night. Like I love saying goodbye to all of them and getting in my car and driving back to my place where it is set up exactly how I like it. And every square inch I designed the way that I wanted to design it. Like my brother has a gym, like in one of the rooms, that's his space. The rest of it, it's not his space, right? Because he's got 3 kids and a crazy dog and a wife who's way better at interior design than he is. And yet for me, I have the advantage of I get to design every room the way that I want to design it. When it comes to time, I get to decide how I want to use my time. He is, and by the way, if he was here, he's one of my best friends. He would tell you all of everything I'm saying is true, and also he wouldn't trade being married and having kids for anything. But for me, I get to decide what I wanted to do today. This morning, I woke up early and got a good workout in. He got up early and started making breakfast for his kids. You know what I mean? Um, Last one, that we could do this all day, but we both get paid the same day. Every other Friday is payday for us. And when he gets paid, he's thinking, okay, I got to take care of my wife. I got to feed my kids. I got to take care of my dog. I don't have to think about any of those things. It's just me, literally just me, right? And so I have an opportunity here where I could use that advantage to cope with all the disadvantages of being single, or I could stop and say, hold on a second. I'm actually at this massive advantage right now. I don't have other mouths I have to feed. And so I am freed up to take this money and infuse it with some purpose and do some good with it. For example, I don't have other mouths that I have to feed, but there are kids going to bed hungry all over the globe tonight. And there's all sorts of amazing nonprofits and ministries that are helping to shift that. And so what if I jumped in and did something with the extra money that I have? And so making small shifts like that, you may be listening to this, watching this going, well, that's like such a small thing, but those small little shifts of infusing purpose into whatever season of life you're in, you watch, you start infusing it with some meaning, and suddenly you'll begin looking around being like, I feel like I have some life back in me. It's almost like I'm experiencing this like a abundant life that I've been wanting to experience. And so finding ways is a long-winded answer to your question. Tons of gifts to being single. The trick is to find ways to make it not all about you. And when you can do that, I think you can start to really thrive as a single person.
It's a great way to describe it. But what I'm hearing is that people can get stuck in their singleness and it becomes all about them. And that actually hurts them in the end. And if they can change that and become contributors, to become givers, to look outside themselves, to create meaning and purpose, it shifts how they feel and how they're a part of the community.
That was so well said. I I understand the verse, it's not good, the Bible verse, it's not good for man to be alone, really well. Because what I see in my own life is a propensity to get really stagnant. And if I'm not careful and if I don't continue to be intentional about not making it about me, it's like my default setting is me. And so I won't even mean to, but without even thinking about it, like I'll make it all about me. And then I'll start to wonder like what's wrong, and I start to feel like every day is like a less exciting rerun of the day before. And so I think that marriage and family is a great design that invites us to not think about ourselves and rather make our lives about serving others. And of course, you still matter in that equation and all of that. But primarily, your life is about providing or serving or loving this family unit that you're a part of. And when you don't have that, a lot of my work is sitting down with people who don't have that, going, how can we be really intentional still about living not just for ourselves, but for others?
helpful way to get people above and beyond themselves. I'm curious, with all of your work in understanding singleness and communicating singleness, can you share a little bit of your own doubts or some of your own longings that may have not been met?
Yeah, I, for me, there's two moments that are always tough. Um, it's when I hang out with my nieces and nephew, um, and I drive home going, man, like having kids, there's something so beautiful about that. And it was kind of tongue in cheek what I said earlier that I love driving home, and I do, and I love having my own space. But at a deeper level, I think one of the longings that feels unmet for me, obviously, is kids, and that is a really real question that every single single person has to ask and acknowledge. And time is it makes things really hard sometimes because time keeps moving forward and there's only a certain amount of it. And I believe my faith is that we're gonna live for all of eternity, but on this side of eternity, like time is a real thing, and biological clocks are a real thing, and all of like people get older, and um, like I think about that stuff a lot. Like okay, if I were to pursue this later in life, would I be too old to jump in and be a dad and be present and be able to keep up with my kids, and all of that. Like that's a very real longing at times. And this is, by the way, if that felt like I just completely contradicted what I said in the beginning of this interview, it's kind of the point, right? Like I say I love being single and this is the decision that I want to make, and that's true about 86% of the time. But like the reality about life is that we're complicated and that there are days where we feel one way and there's days where we feel the other way. And so realizing that to say yes to the 86% of the time that I do want to be single, I'm also saying no to the 14% of the time that I don't. And a big piece of that is with kids. And then I think the second one is when I see a couple who are older and it's very clear that they've been together for like 50 years or whatever, and you see them still have this like love and this spark for one another, and you think about like how much they've been through and like how many times they've had to forgive one another, and like the sweet relationship that they've been able to cultivate over the years. There's times where I see that and I love it for them. And then I go, am I missing out on that? So those are the two like really real longings, unmet longings for me. Do those ones make sense, Lisa?
Absolutely. It's places of deep, deep connection and being known and giving ourselves away and a legacy. It's about legacy too, I'm hearing.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's I think there's something that is in us as humans to want to be a part of this bigger story and to want to continue to pass that along. And that's a really beautiful thing. And so like these are the questions I ask myself when I have like difficult nights where I'm like, okay, when I'm being as honest as I can with myself, I don't think I want to be in a relationship right now. However, that means there are some things that I'm saying no to. And it's really it's wild. It's a really weird calling or purpose or whatever like word you want to paste on it. It can be lonely, it can be strange. Um and and that's why it's so important that you aren't single alone. You may be single, but you don't have to be alone. That's why community is so important, and why I have really good friends in my life who know everything who know all of this about me and who help me through it constantly. Um, our mutual friend Sam Ellis is one of those guys for me. He knows who I am, and he knows like the longings of my heart, and he gives me space to talk through that stuff. And um, yeah, it's just really, really important to have that.
Maybe we can explore that a little bit more. What we've observed is that even after COVID and all these sorts of things, creating community is extremely challenging.
Oh yeah.
Can you give us some tips on when it's not a built-in thing? Maybe their family's not around, maybe they haven't gotten married and built their own family. How do they do that?
Extremely was the correct word choice there. Well done. It's hard. And all the studies that I read show that all the social isolation uh, was very much trending in the wrong direction before COVID, but then 2020 just threw gasoline in this very difficult way on something that was already starting to happen. I'm not sure that we've completely recovered at a relational level. Um, I think a lot of people who uh, were just barely finding the courage to get out and meet new people lost a lot of that courage in that time. And then the world started to change, and most of it went toward devices. And that only, in my opinion, um, continue to pour more gasoline on the problem, where people learn how to have conversations via text, but not looking one another in the eye. And I just believe that we're created to be with each other. And by the way, I get the irony here. We are getting to have this conversation via technology, and we love that, and that's amazing. But both of us would much rather be in the same room right now, right? Because there is something beautiful to that. And
There's a different kind of connection that happens.
theirs is right.
Mhm.
Um, and we're created for that. And I worry, especially with young 20 somethings, teenagers, uh, that is becoming less and less common. And so, like, one of the things I tell the church all the time is like, hey, you can send a text to your friend, great, but like, get in a car and go drive over and look them in the eye and talk to them in person if you can. Like, that's a really important thing to be able to do. And so I feel people isolating more than ever. There's a reason loneliness is now this epidemic, where whatever 52% of people, or whatever the numbers are always changing, uh, say that they're lonely uh, constantly. And I'm going, okay, if everybody's lonely, that means everybody wants friends. And so why are we so afraid to get out and make friends if we know that it's what everybody wants? But it seems like there's this wall that oftentimes holds us down. And listen, I am one of the world's biggest introverts in the world. Okay, so
Uh,
like
okay, you're naturally that way. Yes.
I get it. I get the fear. I get why it's hard. Um, but although I'm an introvert, that doesn't mean I get to punt on community. I know that I need it, and so I still pursue it constantly. And so I think there's a lot to be said about finding the courage to go meet people, and finding the courage to put yourself out there, and finding the courage to fight for friendships. And don't let beautiful, amazing friendships that you've spent years cultivating, don't let them just sort of float away. There's seasons. Sometimes there's relationships where it's seasonal, and I get that. But for like the real ones, man, the ones that you really love, fight to keep those relationships and those friendships going.
Nice. If we go one step deeper, any suggestions on how younger people find that courage?
Hmm. Okay. Here's my here's my trick, my party trick. Um, I at times will be socially so much social anxiety that, like, I'll be sitting in my car ready to go into a party but not wanting to. I'm going to a party tonight. Uh, there's a fair chance that while I'm pulling up for the driveway, I'll start to be like, I can just go home. Like I don't really need to go in there. So what I've learned to do is I'll sit in my car and I will, for me, it's a prayer. But I am essentially saying, I'm not going to make this night about me. I'm going to go in there knowing that there's other people who need encouragement, who need love, who need friends, who someone in that room, in that party tonight will probably have a bad day today and could probably use someone just going, hey, I'll create some space for you. What's going on? Tell me what's happening. And what I've noticed is it's a simple shift, but a lot of what makes me anxious is I'm worrying and wondering what everyone's going to think about me. Like, are they going to think that I'm funny enough? Are they going to think that I'm smart enough? Are they going to think that I'm whatever, you fill in the blank enough, pretty enough, famous enough, rich enough, blah, 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 all the funny games that we play. Instead, if I flip that and go, who cares? Who cares about me? Tonight's not about me. I'm not here to withdraw from other people. I'm here to deposit into their life. And so I'm going to walk into the room and go, who can I encourage? Who can I love? Who can I build up? And that shift, it almost makes the party, it almost gives purpose to the party for me. It makes, like in Christianity, we use the phrase mission, going on like mission trips or mission fields. It turns the party into a mission field for me where I go, I'm going in there knowing there's some hurt and broken people for me to encourage. And what I call it a trick. It's actually, it's not really a trick. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful way to approach life, but it also quiets down those nerves and that anxiety that I have, because it's not on me to go perform and impress everybody. Instead, I have an opportunity to go love some others. And so if you're listening to this and you resonate with that and you're like, man, I struggle to find the courage sometimes to go meet people. What if you made that simple shift where you go, I'm not going to go meet people for me. I'm going to go meet people for them. And I'm going to go see how I can encourage them and love them and just see if that helps. Does that
That's
resonate
a
with you?
wonderful practical advice because it
Yeah.
moves it out of us and it creates connection.
Yeah.
So the intention is creating connection and allowing someone else to be heard, understood, valued. And when we take our eyes off ourselves and put it on them a bit, connection automatically happens.
Totally. Yeah. And that's so well said because really that allows me to be my authentic self. Because I'm not trying to perform. And then naturally, like people are more drawn to that. Like we can tell when somebody's putting on a show. Yeah, like when someone's putting on an act. We have this deep knowing, this deep discernment. I don't even know how it works, but somehow we know. And yet when you meet someone that's not doing that, you're like, I want to hang with that guy. I want to know that person, you know? And so the other practical step I will say is very, very practical. As you can probably tell, I'm someone that's probably overthought social interactions a lot because I get all up in my head. So one of the things I say is we make two mistakes when it comes to having conversations. The first is we talk about ourselves the entire time. The other mistake is that we fail to talk about ourselves at all. And so the primary mistake of like going into a party and being like, here's my take on this and here's what I did today and me. At some point, the person you're talking to is going to be like, hey, I'm also here, even if they're probably going to be polite enough to not say it that way. But be careful as you're having these conversations. Don't make it all about you. However, the other mistake is we go, okay, so Ryan said, don't make these conversations all about me. And so I'm just going to ask questions. And that's great. but also realize that this isn't an interview. Like, you're here having a conversation with a human. And so also be honest about yourself and honest about where you're at and where you struggle. And when somebody at a party meets you or says something vulnerable to you, meet them with the same amount of vulnerability and then just watch. And so for anyone who is going into a social situation and they're a little nervous, I always say it's like, just don't get stuck on either side of the pendulum, talking about yourself all the time or never talking about yourself, and instead let it be this dance. And so, to practice what I preach, Lisa, I would love to hear what you think about that.
That's great. I have observed that it does happen a lot, and it's even more intense than I recall it used to be, where either individuals talk so much about themselves and they don't take a moment to consider and allow the reciprocity. And maybe I experience it more with younger people or older people, that there's this inability to know the flow. And so one of the things I'm curious about, there are specific strategies on, yeah, keeping that right in the middle. Let's say, for example, though, that someone's just talking about themselves and themselves and themselves. And you want to create this reciprocity and you're receiving how does one, and take all that courage that they have and change the dialogue so it becomes more reciprocal? Are there any specific ways to do that?
I tell people to go into every situation with 3 questions in your back pocket to ask other people. Um, and we're not talking like crazy riddles or profound questions, or like, it could be simple, you know. um what was the most life-giving part of your week this week? You ask somebody that and they'll go, huh. I wasn't expecting that type of question, and they'll sit with it for a second and they'll go, you know what, there was a conversation I had with somebody on Tuesday, and I was not expecting the conversation to go the place that it did, but let me tell you about it. And suddenly it's like they're off to the running, and you've like just set the table for them to talk about themselves for a couple of minutes. And that's just the most practical way to do it. Go in going, okay, if I start to feel myself talking about me, what are 3 questions I can ask that will shift the conversation back to you? And if anyone's listening to this going, you're kind of taking like all the magic out of conversation, shouldn't it just happen naturally? I go, yeah, I think we're past that point. Like, I think we need to start like dissecting this,
Yes.
and getting back to the basics and the formulas. And the magic will come uh, during the conversation, but there's nothing wrong with having a formula. Like I say, everybody has a favorite song. Like if we went around and all shared our favorite songs, we'd all share different songs because we all like a different song. But every one of those songs is a verse, a chorus, a verse, a chorus, and then a bridge, and probably another chorus. Like there's a structure to songs, and there can be a structure to conversations too. But the magic of the song comes from what artists create within the structure, and the magic to conversations come from the magic that is created within the structure. It's just that we get too caught on these two extremes, and so we don't let any of that magic happen. Is that resonating at all?
Absolutely. And what you're establishing here are practical ways to build community. And if we don't know how to do the baseline of communication, which is what's been happening, then it's hard to create that community. And so yeah, we're getting into the fundamentals, but they're really necessary right now.
They are,
Yeah.
and for my like logical brain, it puts me at ease. Like I'm sitting here thinking about the party I'm going to tonight. It's friends. I know them all. It's gonna be fine. We're just gonna be hanging out, you know. But I start to get that like feeling in my stomach, you know. And I'm thinking through all the stuff all over again, even all these years in. Like, hey, remember, going to the party looking to encourage some people, infuse the party with some purpose, and then have some questions in your back pocket to drive conversations. And I think at some level, like, we're all afraid of the awkward silence, which I'm a fan of. Like, just sit in the awkward silence. It's okay. It's not like that awkward silence of you're having a conversation with somebody at a party and 2 minutes in, you're both like, we don't know what to say. Um, I think that's one of the things that like aids to the anxiety, but that's where the questions come in. Like, you get to that point, you just go to your second question in your mind, or you go to your third question in your mind. Some of you need to go in with 10 questions, write them down, write them on your
You
hand.
right.
Who cares?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
great.
That's
But go
wonderful.
in prepared, and
Hmm.
that'll put your mind at ease.
Hmm. And I'm going to shift gears a little bit here. Those were really great suggestions. In your book, you talk about shame
Hmm.
and overcoming shame from the past, but also don't worry about the future. Could you
Yeah.
unpack a little bit of that? Uh, because it does have a sense that those are the two aspects that really hold people back. Either they're trying to carry their carry a big load of shame here, and still try to look for the future. It's just that feels like a lot.
It's a lot, right? I Thank you. The book is called Single Today because I noticed the two enemies of being single and thriving as a single person are really yesterday and tomorrow. So it's shame, to your point, from the past, and it's worry about the future. And so you try to step out your front door and be present today as a single person, but there's two things happening. One, you've got all of these mistakes from the past, these regrets from the past, the ones that got away, the text you sent and you can't believe you sent, or the text you didn't send and you have no idea why you didn't send it, and now that person is marrying somebody else. All of the stuff that comes with all of this, like, that creates a lot of regret. And if you're wired like me, you tend to overthink and ruminate on that stuff from the past, and it keeps you from being present right here and right now, in the current conversation that you're in. And then you meet somebody, if that's something that you want. By the way, this isn't a book where I'm just telling people to be single forever. I'm trying to coach you up and get you ready if that's what you want. If marriage is what you want, I want to help you get there. But you meet somebody and you're trying to be present with them, but you can't stop kicking yourself for something that happened 2 years ago, or feeling like you're bound to repeat, whatever that dark moment was for you the last time. And so you're trying to be with this person, but you're actually carrying all of this baggage from the past in, which isn't fair to either you or the person that you're just trying to drink a cup of coffee with, and get to know. And so what I've noticed is when you're single, it's a great opportunity to work through some of that shame from the past. It's almost like you're pulling out it's like you're carrying a heavy bag around and you're starting to pull out a lot of the stuff and leave it, so that when you do sit down for that coffee with that new person, you're much lighter on your feet, and you're much more present, and you're ready for whatever adventure this may be, instead of ruminating on the last. And so shame is a huge one. I spend the first 4 chapters of the book talking about yesterday, and talking about the importance of, for me, it like, I had to start by learning how to name emotions and name things from the past, like give it a name and give it some space. um, I started carrying around a list of emotions, and I now have bookmarks, single today bookmarks, that I give to people, and it has all these emotions, and I go, like, carry it around, and like, it's a cheat sheet, because I need a cheat sheet, because
So,
I have made a lot of progress in this, but I haven't always been super in tune with my emotions and how I'm feeling, especially the deeper feelings. It was like I was a painter who had 3 different colors to choose from. I was like sad, scared, excited. And it's like, there's so much more going
there's
on. And
yes.
like any good painter knows, the more tones you have and hues you have, the more beautiful the painting is going to be. Or maybe a chef is the better analogy of uh, I'm a pretty simple cook, you know, like I'm like a eggs and bacon and toast kind of guy. But the real chefs, they have all sorts of different options and things, and we can learn how to do the same thing with emotions. We can realize that there's all sorts of different feelings that we feel throughout the day, and when we can learn to get in tune with that and name the events that may have caused that from the past, then suddenly that shame that I carry from a past mistake that I make, it's like shining a bright light into a dark corner of my soul. And when you shine that light, the darkness goes away and you start to realize like, oh, that that isn't holding me down anymore. Like that moment's not holding me hostage anymore. I've forgiven the people I need to forgive. I've apologized to the people I need to apologize to. I know for me is I know God forgives me. And so now I'm going to work to forgive myself. And I'm going to realize that that was in the past and that today is a new day. And so I think shame is at is probably the greatest reason why the social isolation is happening, because shame will always try to send you into a corner by yourself, you know?
Great tips on that too.
Hmm.
So, one last question.
Yeah.
What's one thing people might be surprised to learn about you? Maybe something
Mm.
outside of ministry or your writing, just anything that really lights you up.
I love being in nature.
Mm.
Um, and that's why I miss the beach dearly, because that's my favorite place to do that. Um, but anytime it's a hike outside, I like to paddleboard here in Austin. To me, uh, my job is so like I'm sitting in an office typing into a computer, and that's beautiful. But that's really what's happening is I'm reporting back on adventures that I've usually had out in nature and out in the wild. And um, I just love, like my soul feels alive when I'm out exploring the world.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a really inspiring conversation, Ryan.
Mm.
Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
your journey, really practical insights that people can use, helping to reframe singleness and those challenges, very specific challenges that single people endure, and allowing that to empower them. And I do think a lot of people are going to walk away from this particular episode feeling encouraged and seen. So thanks for being here.
Yeah.
And tell us, where can we get your book?
Yes. So Lisa, first off, thank you for your kind words and thank you for having me on. And you're a great question asker.
Mm.
Um, I can tell you're very passionate about this. You're very good at it, and so thank you for the space that you are creating. And the book is called Single Today. My name is Ryan Wekenman. It's on Amazon. I also have a Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, and then I have a website, ryanweckman.com, that I kind of keep up to date with all the upcoming projects and next books and all of that good stuff. But yeah, I would love for people to check out Single Today. It's on Audible if you're more of an audiobook person, or on Amazon. And yeah, let me know what you think. Obviously, leaving like reviews on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, all of that goes a long way. First time author, you know, I'm trying to get the word out about everything, and so all that kind of support would be really appreciated. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.